She was beaten for birthing a girl. The widowed sheriff took both mother and baby in. The rain had begun before dawn, pounding against the clay rooftops and winding cobblestone streets of the small town of Millersford. Inside a crumbling wooden house on the outskirts, a woman lay on the floor, shivering, her clothes torn, her body bruised. Yet in her arms, swaddled in a faded blanket, was the soft, tiny life she had brought into the world just hours before, a baby girl. Marina had always dreamed of becoming a mother, but in her village, daughters were considered a burden. When she had given birth to a girl instead of a boy, her husband's family had turned on her with a rage that left marks not only on her body but on her heart. She had been beaten, scolded, and cast aside, told she had failed before life had even begun for her daughter. The pain, both physical and emotional, was unbearable. But she wasn't alone anymore. By chance, or perhaps fate, the widowed sheriff, Elijah Hayes, had been on his early morning patrol when he heard her weak cries echoing down the empty alley. His horse shivered in the rain as he approached the flickering lamplight of her home. He could see the shadows of desperation through the cracked windows, and something in his chest tightened. He had lost his wife and child many years ago, and he knew all too well the ache of helplessness. Breaking through the door, he found her curled on the floor, cradling her newborn with trembling arms. Marina looked up at him, her eyes wide, red from crying. "Please, help her," she whispered, nodding toward the baby. Her voice was barely audible over the storm outside. Elijah's heart ached. He knelt beside her without hesitation. "You're safe now," he said gently, carefully lifting the infant from her arms. The baby's tiny hands curled instinctively around his fingers. "Both of you are coming with me. No one will hurt you here." The journey to his small cabin on the hill was quiet, save for the rhythmic sound of rain and the occasional soft coo from the baby. Marina's body shook from exhaustion, but she felt a spark of hope she hadn't dared to feel in months. Elijah didn't ask questions. He didn't judge. He simply offered the shelter, warmth, and kindness that she had been denied. Over the next few weeks, Marina slowly began to heal. The bruises faded, but the weight of fear lingered. Every morning, she watched her daughter, Lily, stretch and yawn, marveling at the tiny miracle she had almost lost. Elijah, meanwhile, became a constant presence, a quiet, steady force in a world that had been cruel and unpredictable. He repaired the broken floorboards, fetched warm food, and never once turned away when Marina needed to talk, even when her words were choked with anger, grief, or despair. One afternoon, as the sun pierced the clouds for the first time in days, Marina sat outside, Lily resting in her lap. She watched the sheriff tending to the small garden he had planted. Something inside her stirred, a realization she hadn't expected: kindness could be stronger than cruelty. She had been broken, but here was a man who showed her that the human heart was capable of deep, unwavering compassion. "Elijah," she said softly, "why do you do this for me?" "For her?" He paused, wiping the sweat from his brow, and smiled faintly. "Because someone once did it for me," he replied. "And because everyone deserves a chance to be safe, to be loved, to be seen. You and Lily belong here, with people who care." It was in that moment Marina understood the profound truth: sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could ripple out and heal what had seemed irreparable. It wasn't wealth or power that saved lives, it was empathy, patience, and courage. Word began to spread quietly through Millersford about the sheriff who had taken in a beaten woman and her newborn. At first, whispers filled the town with curiosity, even skepticism. But as days turned into weeks, the villagers who had once turned their backs began to notice the change in Marina. She laughed more freely, walked taller, and carried Lily with pride instead of fear. One chilly evening, a few months later, Marina stepped out onto the porch with Lily in her arms. The sky was painted in gold and lavender, and the first hints of spring filled the air. She looked toward the town below and felt a sense of possibility she hadn't known since her girl was born. The sheriff joined her, and they stood in quiet companionship, two people whose lives had intersected in tragedy and now bloomed with hope. "Elijah," she said, voice steady, "I never thought I'd see a day when I could feel safe. When I could feel happy again." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "The world can be cruel," he said, "but it can also be beautiful. We just have to find the courage to believe in it." Marina held Lily closer and watched her yawn, the tiny hands gripping her finger. In that simple gesture, she saw a future unbroken by fear, a life defined not by the cruelty she had endured but by the love she had found. She realized that her daughter, just by existing, was a testament to resilience and hope. And she understood that compassion, even in its quietest forms, could transform lives in ways no violence could ever undo. In the heart of Millersford, a beaten woman had been lifted, a newborn had been protected, and a widowed sheriff had reminded the world that the smallest acts of humanity, the sheltering, the listening, the steady hand, could shine brighter than any darkness. And for Marina and Lily, the storm had finally passed.